Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. My name is Zach, I will be your teacher. We are today going to be discussing the past tense, and we're going to be looking at the 4 main tenses in the past and doing some exercises on them. Because we're covering 4 tenses, this class may be more than 1 hour. If you have to leave at 12 o'clock or around 12, that's absolutely fine. But if you want to stay on, we'll be going on a little bit longer than 1 hour, just to make sure we have everything covered. But by the end of this class, you should have a really good, solid understanding of the different ways to form the past tense. The document I'm going to show you is not exhaustive. Exhaustive means 100% complete, because if we were to go into too much detail, it would take too long. But I'm covering the main areas of the past tense, so it should definitely give you a good foundation. And then if you want, you can look in a grammar book or on some websites to fill in the details like I was talking about. But yeah, it should definitely give you a good start anyway. Okay, let me just, very nice to see some of you from my last lesson. Those who weren't here, I just want to quickly find out a little bit about. Is Andre with us?
Hello Zach, hello everybody.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Good. And you?
I'm very good, thank you. Where are you from?
I'm from Russia, Moscow.
Okay, very cool. How is it in Moscow today?
It is a little bit rainy.
Rainy? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I would be happy because I like the rain, but I'm a bit different from most people. Cool, and Konstantin, are you there?
Hello.
Hello. Where are you from?
I'm from Russia too. Very nice to meet you all.
Yeah, you too. And you in Moscow too as well?
No, I'm not from Moscow. I'm about 1,000 kilometers from this town.
Okay, that's quite far. Cool. All right, well, welcome to the class. Natalia, are you from Russia as well?
Yes, I'm from Russia too, but I'm not from Moscow.
Are you from 1,000 kilometers from Moscow?
Oh, I don't know. I'm from Slavinsk.
Slavinsk, okay. Very nice. And I'm guessing that you 3 don't know each other. Just coincidence that we have lots of Russians today. Okay, I'll take that as a yes, your silence. Okay, guys. Well, we're going to jump into the past tense today. Everyone else, sorry, I'm only asking you 3, but the rest of the students were in my last class, so we all sort of know each other. They're all very nice. They won't bite. Today we're going to talk about the past tense. I was just going to say for Konstantin, Natalia, and Andre, just make sure you have headphones and make sure that this is the only Verbling window that's open, because else it creates sort of a disruption. It sounds like you're all okay, so it's not a problem. But otherwise, let's just jump straight into it because we have a long lesson and lots to learn. So the document that we're going to use that I've made is here. I will post it. And here. Now, we're not going to do too much practice of the simple past and the past progressive. We'll try and do a bit of practice of the past progressive, but these are fairly simple tenses. And also, if we do too much practice of everything, then the lesson's going to be like 2 hours. So if these are unclear and you want to practice, there are lots of exercises. You can just Google simple past exercises or past progressive exercises, and there's lots of quizzes that you can do online to test your ability here. So it's going to be a little bit of reading at the beginning, so just try to make sure you're understanding everything. And then when we get to the perfect past and the perfect past progressive, we're going to be testing that we all understand how to form both of these, and we're going to do a few sentences together on those subjects. Okay, so trying to think if I should read or I should ask you guys to read. I'll ask you guys to read. You could do the first. Yeah. If Igor, if you could read the first paragraph to us about the simple past, that would be good.
Simple past. The simple past or past simple, as you would expect, is used to talk about actions of events or events that took place in the past. The action or event is also completely finished, and we say or understand the time and or place of the event. The action or event can be short or long, and it also does not matter how long ago it took place.
Okay, very good. So we use the simple past for completed actions in the past. It does not matter whether they were long actions or short actions. It does not matter if they happened yesterday or 10 years ago. So this is the most common past tense that you will come across. And the way to form it is very easy. Most of the time, you just use the past form of the verb, which we're going to come to explain underneath how to actually make the past form of the verb. So let me ask Inga if you could read the next paragraph underneath formation.
Most of the time, you can make the past form by adding ed to the end of the base form of the verb, or d if the base form already ends in e. However, irregular verbs are formed differently in the past. For example, go, went, see, so, and these must be learned by heart.
Okay, so this is an example that I give you. I have not given you a list of irregular verbs. You have to find the irregular verbs online or in a textbook and find them and then learn each of the past forms. I just gave you a couple of examples. Obviously, the past form of go is not goed. I did not goed. You have to say it went. I, he, she, we went. And there are other examples. And then the other thing to remember is if the verb already ends in an E, can someone give me an example of a verb that ends in E?
Drive. Oh, sorry, drive. No, drive. It's not.
That's an irregular.
Not,
yeah.
Live.
Drive is irregular.
Live
Yes.
and lived.
Live and lived, exactly. So you just, because the E is already there, you just throw a D on the end and you say lived. Okay? So it's really, generally, it's quite easy to form it, but as Inga just informed us, there are exceptions to this, and you have to learn certain verbs by heart, like drive, go, see, that kind of thing. And the more you use them, the more you practice, it will become very natural for you to use the past form. And it's always the same as well. So it's not I, he, went with an S on the end. Like you conjugate them exactly the same. I went, you went, he, she went, they went. It's very simple in that regard. Okay? And now it gets a little bit more complicated when we talk about negative sentences and we talk about questions in the past as well. So I'll just read this part. The structure for negative sentences in the simple past is subject plus did plus the base form of the verb. The structure for question sentences in the past, in the simple past, is did and subject and base. Now I'm sure you're reading that and you're saying, I don't understand what he's talking about. Like what are these three things? But we're about to look at some examples which should make it a bit clearer. So these three sentences include what we just spoke about, the normal simple past, and then it includes negatives and they include sentences, and we'll see how they do that. One day, Anne decided that she did not like her cat, so she stopped feeding it. Okay? So we have two normal uses of the simple past, which is decided and stopped. And then we have the negative aspect, because we're still talking about an action in the past or an event in the past. And then we have Anne. Hold on a second, sorry, did not. I made a mistake. It should be subject plus did not and base for negative sentences, okay? So Anne is the subject, did not. I mean, I use did because technically it is did, but it's obviously just a negative form. So Anne is the subject, did not, and then the base form of the verb is like, to like. Okay, does everyone see that for the negatives?
Yes.
If you're talking about something in the past and it's negative, you have to use did. And then, yeah. Okay, Paul broke his promise to Peter. Again, break is an irregular verb, so it goes broke. Break goes to broke. But otherwise, that's a normal past form. And for questions, we do did and then the subject, and then the base. So did you, being the subject, enjoy is the basic form of the verb. Did you enjoy the film last night? Okay, so there is one exception to this, and that's the verb to be. We conjugate this: I was, you were, he, she, it was, we were, and they were. Right? So you know how I said before with the past forms you don't have to conjugate them? With the verb to be, you do have to conjugate them, and that's exactly how you do it. I just put that in the brackets for you. And we also do not use did for negative and question sentences. To make a question, we exchange the subject and the verb. Okay? So you, we, they were in America. That's the normal past form for to be. And then for the question, was I, he, she correct? Okay. So if I want to say you can say I was correct. To make a sentence, you change the subject and the verb, and you make was I correct? I was correct, or was I correct? Okay. And for negatives, we do not use did. We just say I was not happy. Okay. Not I did was not happy. That makes no sense. Okay. And again, that's something probably most of you know already, and you don't make mistakes with that. But if you ever want to think about it, understand exactly why the verb to be is different, then you come and look at this, and that should make sense. Okay, do we need to practice that? I'm not sure. We could do some practice sentences if we want, but I haven't made any, so I'll have to do things. But does everyone feel like they have a good understanding of the simple past? Maybe I should ask that question. Is there anyone that wants to do some practice of the simple past? Does that make sense? No? Okay. That was your chance. So we'll move on. We are going to be practicing the slightly harder ones, obviously. So we could just wait till we get to those. Okay, so now the past progressive. Let me ask someone to read again. Alice, can you read the first section for us, including down until the examples, if you wouldn't mind?
Mm-hmm. We use the past progressive to express that something is happening continuously. It is in progress around a particular time in the past. Formation was were plus ing. For negative sentences in the past continuous tense, we insert not between was were and auxiliary and the main verb. For question sentences, we exchange the subject and was were, the auxiliary. Examples: they were meeting secretary after school. What were you doing when Carl called you yesterday? My mother walked in on me while I was sitting on the toilet.
Okay, and you can finish. You can keep reading, actually.
Okay. As you can see, in the last two examples, you will very often find the past progressive together in a sentence with a simple past to refer to a longer background, action, or event. The simple past refers to a shorter action or event that happened. For example, Carl called, my mother walked in the middle of the longer action.
Yes, okay. I think your connection broke up a little bit there. But do we understand that this idea that we often use the past... That's okay, no, it's not your fault. We understood, we heard. But the general idea that we were expressing here is that often you'll use the simple past and the past progressive, and you'll use the past progressive to talk about something that's going on continuously, and then you use the simple past to say, and something happened in the middle of that. Okay? So in this case, in the two examples, what were you doing continuously? That's the background. When Carl called you, that's the single action, so we use the simple past. Okay? My mother walked in on me. That's the simple action, so we use the simple past, single action. While I was sitting on the toilet, which happened for a while. I'm not saying I just sat. I can say I sat on the toilet, but then I'm describing the action of sitting down. If I said while I was sitting or while they were sitting, it means it's happening for some time. Okay? And it's quite similar to what we were talking about with was above. So again, for question sentences, you just simply swap the subject and was. So I was sitting down. Were you sitting down? Remember, we have to conjugate. We have to conjugate the verb is in the past. I was sitting down. Subject, verb. Subject and verb, and then you swap them for questions. So were you, verb, subject. Okay, and it's the same with the simple past. Does that make sense to everyone? Are we all good with the past progressive? You want some practice?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes to practice, or yes, you understand?
Yes, practice.
Practice.
Practice and understand.
Practice and understand. Practice and then understand. Okay. So let's all try and come up with examples of using the simple past and the past progressive in a sentence. Okay. So tell me about something that happened to you yesterday or in the last week. Tell me something that was happening to you when something else happened, when you were interrupted. Or you can make it up. It doesn't have to be real. So let me ask Andre if he could give us an example.
Yes. I was doing my job when my boss called to me. Maybe.
When my boss called me.
Called me. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Or I was doing my job is quite vague. It's possible, but it would be more like you would describe like a more specific action that happened. Like I was looking at a spreadsheet, or I was
looking at my monitor.
Yeah, I was looking at my monitor when my boss called me. Exactly. Okay, Inga, do you want to do an example of that?
Actually, Andre read my thoughts, but I will try to come up.
Can't pick the same example.
Yeah. I was listening music when someone knocked the door. Can I say?
I was listening to music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have to. So you made the opposite mistake of Andre. He said my boss called to me. You don't have a preposition with call. You just call someone. And listening to, you do have a preposition. If you're listening to something, you have to. Okay, so your example was I was listening to music when
someone knocked on the door.
On the door. Excellent. Okay, now I'm going to ask if someone can ask a question to someone else. Well, yeah. It doesn't have to be to someone else, but Hazel, can you ask a question using the past progressive?
What were you doing yesterday when I called you?
Okay, perfect. What were you doing yesterday? Or you can say, what were you thinking? Or what were you eating that made you feel very sick afterwards? Okay, and then we want to do some negatives. Alex, can you do a negative past progressive? It's very simple. It's the same as positive, but you just put not in there. In between the is, the was, were, and the main verb.
Okay. Should I answer or not?
Yeah, no, you should know. Just say statements in the negative.
Negative. Okay. It wasn't raining when I was in my job.
When I was at work, you say.
I work. Yeah.
Work. Yeah. It wasn't raining.
Yeah. Work.
While I was at work. Okay. Very good. So again, you just put not between the auxiliary and the main verb. Natalia, do you want to try a negative?
Okay. For example, I wasn't cooking when my husband come home.
When my husband
comes
Okay.
home.
No, it's an irregular. But what's the past? What's the simple past of to come?
Came.
Correct. So do you want to say it again? Do you want to try your sentence again?
This sentence again?
Yes, because you made a mistake with the first sentence with the simple past. So just try it again.
Okay. I wasn't cooking when my husband came home.
Perfect. Excellent. And that's an example of a negative, and also combining the simple past and the past progressive. Yeah. Often we'll begin a story with the past progressive. You'll say it was raining very hard. It's setting the scene, right? Because it's something that's happening over a long time. It's a way of sort of setting the scene. But the general idea is that it's a continuous action, and the simple past is a single action. Okay? All right, guys. I think sounds like we already know that pretty well. So let's move on to the more difficult tenses now. Maybe we won't actually run out of time because we got through that fairly quickly. Okay, so those are the two most common past tenses that you will come across. Now we're going to get a bit more tricky. We're going to talk about the past perfect, or the perfect past, sometimes called as well. Right, let me ask someone to read. Hazel, can you read? Did you read already? No.
Sure, I haven't.
You haven't read. Okay, yes, if you could read down to, now look at this sentence.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about something that happened in the past, we sometimes want to refer back to something that happened before that time. To do this, we use the past perfect formation. Had plus past participle. Compare these two sentences. Peter left the office at 8 p.m. The package Peter was waiting for arrived at 8:30 p.m. Both of these sentences use the simple past. They describe short, quickly finished events. Now look at this sentence. The package Peter was waiting for arrived at 8:30 p.m., but Peter had left the office already.
Yeah, actually, keep going to with the next paragraph as well.
Okay. This sentence combines the previous sentences by indicating that the first event in the past, Peter leaving the office, happened before the second event, the package arriving. In this way, the past perfect can be said to refer to an earlier past. Look at these sentences. Mary had run a bath when Paul came home. Mary ran a bath when Paul came home. What is the difference between these two sentences?
Okay, good question. Can someone tell me?
Mm-hmm. Past perfect happened before past tense. The action in past perfect happens before.
Exactly.
The past tense.
Okay, that's true. And so when I say Mary ran a bath when Paul came home, how's that different?
Mary had run a bath is past perfect, and it's happened before.
Yes, and implying that Mary ran a bath means that she only started running the bath when he came home. By the way, to run a bath, if someone doesn't know, just means to make a bath. We say to run a bath for some reason. You make a bath.
And have a shower.
And you have a shower, yeah. So the second example, she did it when Paul came home. Okay. But in the first example, if this is the timeline, this is an earlier past. So this is when she ran the bath. And this is all the past, okay? From here back, it's all the past. This is when she ran the bath, and this is when Peter came home. So we use the past perfect to talk about a time in the past before another time in the past that we were already talking about, okay? And the example we used above, Peter left the office at 8. The package he was waiting for arrived at 8:30. And if we want to put them together, we say the package arrived at 8:30, right? The package arrived here in the past at 8:30, but Peter had already left the office before the package arrived, okay? As Hazel said, we form this with had and the past form, or the past participle. Again, by adding ed, or just d, or if it's irregular, in the case of Peter, leave, left is irregular. So it's had plus past participle. So it's quite simple, it seems, but it could become a bit tricky. But now let's try and do some exercises on that to see how that goes. So I've put the verbs in just the basic form, and I would like you to complete the sentence with both of the verbs in the correct past form. Okay? So the first one here is the concert already start by the time arrive, which doesn't make sense until we make it make sense. So let me ask Konstantin, can you have a go at that?
The concert had already started by the time we arrived.
Very good. We arrived here. That's where the concert started before. Okay, both in the past, but the concert had already started. So often you'll see it had already past participle. You can put already in between had and the past participle. Okay, we see him long after he see us. Who should I ask? Vincenzo, are you here?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to try that one?
Okay. In the past participle, yeah.
Yes. No, in the past perfect, in the tense that we've been learning. You have to decide what goes which. But we're practicing the past perfect, so you have to use this for one of the verbs.
Okay, I try in the past perfect. I used to say at home when.
No. Can you see the document we're working from?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so we're doing complete these sentences on the 3rd page, I think.
Complete the sentences. Okay.
And the second one.
Is the second one? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No problem.
We saw him long after he saw us.
Where's the past perfect there? Remember, we're practicing the past perfect. Had plus past participle.
We had so.
No.
Okay, I try later. I'm sorry.
No, try again. Try again. I think you can do it. We something him.
We.
And I made a mistake. It's not had saw. It's not had saw. It's not actually the past form. The past participle is different.
Seen.
Yeah. But do you want to try it with? Do you want to give it a go?
Could I try later?
Yeah, I'll ask you again. No problem.
Okay.
Hazel, do you want to try this one?
Sorry?
Do you want to try this one?
Yes. We saw him long after he had seen us.
Yes, exactly. Very good. We saw him long after he had seen us. So he had seen us. We saw him. All in the past. Okay. All right. The next one. When Lisa come home, we already arrange the surprise party. Let me ask Igor. Do you want to try that one?
When Lisa came home, we had already arranged the surprise party.
Yep, very good. Okay, the princess be married twice before she finally meets the love of her life. Alex, try that one.
Okay. The princess had been married twice before she finally met the love of her life.
Sorry. Say, can you say that one more time?
Okay.
Try again. Yep.
Yeah,
No.
I know.
I just didn't hear you. I just didn't. No. I just didn't hear you say. I didn't hear you so well. Sorry. Can you say that again?
I'm thinking. Okay. The princess had been married twice before she finally met the love of her life.
Perfect. That's absolutely right. The princess had been married twice. So already before she met, we could just say the princess met the love of her life. That happened, a single action in the past, simple past, no problem.
Yeah.
Now we want to say, we could give more information. We'll say she had already been married twice before she met the love of her life. And so had plus past participle, which is been. Okay. Past participle is often the same, as the past form, but in irregular cases with irregular verbs, like saw, we just looked at saw, it's sometimes a bit different. The past form is saw, past participle is seen. And again, you have to learn this yourself. But if you're in doubt, chances are it may be a regular verb, you can just add ed or d. Obviously here as well, she had been, not she had was. Okay, that's the past participle. Seen and been. Anthony is not allowed to play with his toys because he hit his brother earlier. Is anyone I haven't asked who wants to try one? Because I sometimes lose track of who I asked and who I haven't asked.
I can try.
Yeah, go for it, Andre.
Anthony was not allowed to play with his toys because he had hit his brother earlier.
Very good. He had hit his brother earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. By the time the police come to the scene, the robber flee. Let me ask. Inga, do you want to try that one?
By the time the police came to the scene, the robber had...
Yep, it's irregular.
Sorry, I don't know.
To flee means to run away, to disappear. And the past participle, yes, Hazel, was that you? Fled. Yeah, very good. By the time the police came to the scene, the robber had fled. Or the robber had fled by the time the police came to the scene. Often we use this expression, by the time. So, by the time the simple past thing happened, a past perfect thing had happened before, is one way of looking at it. Okay, last one to practice. The CEO of the company quit long before the allegations of fraud come to light. Natalia, do you want to go?
Yes. The CEO of the company had quit long before the allegations of fraud came to light.
Excellent. Yeah.
Oh.
Why, you were nervous? You thought you wouldn't have it? No, you did a good job. So the CEO of the company had quit. This because it happened first, and then the allegations, which means accusations, you know, people said you did this or you committed a crime, came to light. Means something to come to light means to come into it. It's what it sounds like. It means it's come into view. If something is surfaced, you can say surfaced as well. The verb to surface something means to bring it up so everyone can see. Okay.
Quit is an irregular verb. Sorry, Zach.
Yes.
Quit. I thought it's regular and it needs ed.
No, it's not. It's irregular. Quit in the past is quit.
Quit. Okay.
So you have to think of what I mean. If I say I quit, I could be talking about today. I could be talking about 2 weeks ago.
I realize now.
Yeah.
Because
So
I
make sure
never encountered being as an irregular. I thought it's a regular verb. Quit.
No.
Okay.
No problem. So yeah, make sure you're learning your irregular verb, guys. We can't do that in this lesson, of course, but there's lots of lists online, and it shows you what the past form is and what the past participle is. And often they're the same or similar.
Okay.
Another usage of the past perfect concerns unreal events. After if, wish, and would rather, the past perfect can be used to talk about past events that did not happen. For example, if I had gone to university, I would have studied law. Okay? I wish you had been honest with me. Or I'd rather you had asked me before throwing a party in our house. Okay? I should really have highlighted the past perfect there as well. I just highlighted the if, wish, and would rather. But here we're talking about unreal things that didn't happen, almost like a hypothetical in the past. Okay, so it's not exactly the same as having one past and an earlier past. It's just talking about a sort of hypothetical situation. Let's practice a couple of those just to make sure So someone look at the sentences there, and Igor, can you tell me about something you wish had happened in the past?
What construction?
I wish.
Uh,
Past perfect still.
I wish I had been studied English more.
I wish I had studied English.
I studied English. Okay.
Yes. What you just said is I wish I had been studying English. We're about to come on to that. That's past perfect continuous or past perfect progressive.
Okay.
But we're not talking about. You're talking about like a particular time in the past, specific time. I wish I had studied English. Okay. If let me. Someone use the if construction to form a past perfect. Konstantin.
If I had woken up earlier, I wouldn't have been late.
Okay. If I had woken up earlier, I would not have been late. That's very good. Yeah, perfect. And rather, to rather, would rather, sorry. Vincenzo, do you want to try one?
Okay.
Say, I would rather he had something.
Yeah, it's very tricky for me. I would
look at the sentence. I always encourage you if you're having difficulty, look at the same sentence that I wrote, and then just fill in the subject, put in a different subject, and put a different verb, for example.
Okay.
So what's the sentence? You see the sentence I wrote on the document?
Yeah. I'd rather you.
So you're saying something that didn't happen, but something you wish had happened. You wanted it to happen in the past. It's an unreal possibility now. And you use the past perfect for this.
Okay. I'd rather watching the TV.
Remember, we're doing the past perfect here, so you have to have it's had and past participle.
Okay. I'd rather had watched the TV.
No, that's I'd rather have. It's a different past tense. I'd rather
had watched.
Had watched.
I would rather had watched. No,
I would rather.
Because you can't be you can't. The subject does not cover both verbs. You have to have another subject. I'd rather he. I'd rather we. I'd rather you. You as a subject are the one who would rather something.
Okay.
But you can't also be talking about watching TV with that same subject. So you have to say, I'd rather someone else had done something.
Okay.
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up. That's a good point. Inga just gave a good example in the chat that you can borrow if you want to, Vincenzo.
Okay. I'd rather you to.
Not to, no, had.
I'd rather you had studied English.
Yes.
Before taking. Before taking your exams.
Yes, I'd rather you had studied English before taking your exams.
Okay.
Or I'd rather you had studied a bit more. Is more normal, I think.
Okay.
If you haven't done
now
any
I
study,
understand.
Yeah, I'd rather you had studied English before taking your exams. And in this case, it's yeah, no, that's fine. Perfect. I'd rather you had yeah.
Okay, I understand.
I'm happy with that.
Okay.
May I train too?
Yeah, of course, Natalia, please.
I'd rather you had talked to your mother before I visited you.
Yes, before I visited you. Simple past.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
And in this case, we are. It's more similar to before because we have the past, visited, and then before. Right? We're saying that before. But it's still this idea of like an unreal situation. I'd rather, because it didn't happen. We're not saying Peter had left the office. We're saying I would rather something had happened, but it didn't happen. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So just remember that is another area you use it in for unreal events. So if you're having trouble because you're thinking, oh, where is the first event before the had, that comes after the had, then think about it. Is this a hypothetical situation? Because if it's hypothetical, then we don't always have to do it. It's sort of implied. So you say, if I had gone to university, I would have studied law. The implication there is that we're already discussing the past, right? We're talking about, so you could really say, when I was younger, if I had gone to university around that time, then, you know, I would have studied law. It may actually confuse you to think about it like that, so just better to stick to thinking for unreal events. It's very simple. If, wish, and would rather are all examples. So just look back at those examples if you're ever confused. Okay, now we're going to go on to the trickiest one, which is still not that tricky, I don't think, but it's English. So. Past perfect progressive. Let me ask somebody to read this. Andre, do you want to read?
Yes.
Okay.
This is very similar to the tense we have just learned, but we use it to talk about events that had continued up until the past moment that we were thinking about or soon before it. So again, there are 2 points in the past we are focusing on, but in this case the earlier point continues up in the later point or soon before it.
Up until the later point.
Up until the later point, yeah. A formation had been plus in form. The negative sentences in the past perfect progressive we insert not after the had. For question sentences which exchange the subject and had, the first auxiliary verb. Look at these examples. I had been
carry on.
I had been drinking for many years when I met my wife, who finally persuaded me to stop. When we lost the competition the first time, we had not been trying very hard. Had you been flying for a long time? Note, the other time in the past does not always need to be mentioned directly. It may have been mentioned already, or it could have been implied.
Okay, so in that last example, had you been flying, then it means that I'm talking to someone and we're already talking about a time in the past. Okay, so I don't have to say, had you been flying when the accident happened or when something else happened, okay, because it can be implied. So just like last time, we're talking about 2 events in the past again. This is all the past. Event A, event B. And whereas use the past perfect to say Peter had left, right? That's a single action, like the simple past. Now we're talking about actions that are continuing up until point B, or very close to point B in the past. So we're still talking about two points in the past, but something had happened for a while, continuously until point B. So yeah, and then obviously with negative sentences we put had not. So had is the auxiliary verb, just like was the auxiliary verb with the past progressive. I was hitting something, or I was speaking. And we put not after had to make negative, which is very simple. And like we keep doing before, you swap the auxiliary and the subject if you're making a question. Okay, I had been flying for 5 years. Had you, swapping the subject and the auxiliary, had you been flying for 5 years? Okay. Does that, before we do some exercises, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah? You think? Okay. This is good. We've already learned 3 and we're on the 4th 10, so we got through this 1,000 times quicker than I thought we were. So I might always need to apologize if the lesson finishes earlier, but we can keep practicing if you guys want until 12 o'clock. Okay, so...
Sorry, may I ask a question?
Of course.
In this case, did that action already finished? I mean, here we again have 2 past tenses, yes?
Mm-hmm.
When one happened, I mean simple past. Did one with past perfect progressive still continue? Or
it can, or it cannot. It's either way, right? So I had been.
I just want to understand the difference between past progressive and past perfect progressive.
In both cases, they could continue after the simple past, after the other action happens, or they could stop. It's not important. The difference is, I was, when she came through the door, I had been doing it. Hold on a second. I'm trying to get it right in my head. The difference is with the past perfect progressive, it implies that there was an earlier point in the past, okay? With the past progressive, you don't have to have the simple past. So, I was sitting on the toilet when my mother walked in. I could just say, I was sitting on the toilet. Okay? To tell a story or something like that. It can sort of be used on its own. But had been implies that there is going to be another point in the past that we're definitely talking about as well. Does that make sense? No? It basically, you say, I was running for 4 minutes. How long were you running for? I was running for 4 minutes. If I say I had been running for 4 minutes, then I have to say something else. I had been running for 4 minutes when I collapsed because I was too exhausted, something like that, right?
In your last example, had you been flying for a long time?
So
again, we can say, what was you flying for a long time?
Were you? Remember to conjugate the auxiliary.
Sorry.
Were you flying? No, because I would say to someone, had you been flying for a long time, with the implication that we're talking about some other event in the past that happened. So had you been flying for a long time when your plane crashed? Sorry to pick a tragic example. I'm not always very good at examples. But had you been flying for a long time when something else had to happen there before? Okay. Sometimes people who use grammar loosely will say, were you flying for a long time? But it's not really correct. It's not. You don't want to say that. It's not past progressive. If you're talking about another event that happened already in the past, and then this is had up until that second event, had you been doing something. Whereas past progressive, it can just be at any point in the past. You don't have to have another event that comes with it. So you can say, if you do combine them, if you do want to use simple past as well, sometimes you can use them interchangeably. Interchangeably means you can use one or the other. So I could say, I was sitting on the toilet when my mother came in, or I had been sitting on the toilet when my mother came in. Okay?
Okay.
And I think just saying those two sentences, it makes me think that I was. It's more direct, if you know what I mean. It's more immediate. It's more immediate when they say I was sitting on the toilet. I had been is more like you're telling a story, right? But that's a secondary thing. The most important thing to remember is you say I had been if there is definitely another action in the past. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. So let's do some practice now. Maybe it'll become clearer. Hopefully. Okay. They talk for over an hour when Scott arrived. Hazel, do you want to try that one?
Yes. They had been talking for over an hour when Scott arrived.
Very good. We speak about marriage for some time by the time we finally decide to go for it. Igor.
We had been spoken.
Speaking.
ING. You take the base.
Yeah. We had been speaking about marriage for some time by the time we finally decided to go for it.
Yeah, very good. We had been speaking about marriage by the time we finally decided to go for it. He asked for a promotion for several months before it finally happened. Natalia.
He had been asking for a promotion for several months before it finally happened.
Very good. He had been asking before promotion, before it finally happened. The cat not eat for days, so I take him to the vet. Konstantin.
The cat hadn't been eating for days, so I took him to the vet.
Very good. So you can do a contraction there as well. So first of all, you put not in between had and been. Had not been eating.
Had not been eating.
Yeah, and then you say hadn't. Had apostrophe nt is the same as had not. The cat hadn't been eating for days, so I took him to the vet. Okay, so it means he had not continuously for a long time been eating. So then I had to take him to the vet. Angie wants to sit down because she stand all day at work. Who hasn't gone? Alex, do you want to go?
Yeah. And Angie wanted to sit down because she had been studying all day at work.
Yeah. Angie wanted to sit down because she had... Did you say had been standing? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because she had been standing all day at work.
Yeah.
And the last one, there is no food in the forest, so the monkey starved for many days. Who would like to go? Hazel, do you want to try this one?
Yes, there wasn't any food in the forest, so the monkeys had been starving for many days.
Very good. Perfect. And that's all there is to it. That's your simple past, your past progressive, your past perfect, and your past perfect progressive. Or perfect past progressive. I think you can say both. Past perfect progressive. Is
or
that
continuous? We can say
or continuous, yes. English is very flexible. But do they make sense to everyone? Inga, did that make sense, the explanation I gave for the difference between those two?
Yeah.
It did? Okay. Sometimes you can use both of them. But if you're talking about two times in the past, you can use both often. But if you're just talking about something that was happening on its own, then you have to use the past progressive. Okay?
But past perfect, yeah? For example, had something, for example, I had left before the train arrived, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this is the only use of this kind of verb, had left, for example, or we have another kind of, we can use in another forms.
No, unless you're saying I had something in the past, like if you're using the past participle and had, then you're definitely using the past perfect, 100%.
Okay, but we have other times. I mean,
no. If you do you mean we had without the past participle?
We, for example, with this construction, we had, for example, arrived. Yeah.
Yes. Then we had arrived.
Yeah.
You have to. There's always another time that you're discussing. It can be implied though. Remember, we had arrived. So you can actually say, for example, if you're writing a book or something, blah blah blah. We had arrived. You're already talking. If you're narrating, do you understand narrating? If you're a narrator of a book, you're telling the story in the third person, or it could be first person. If you're already talking in the past, I'm telling a story about my trip to Austria, then I can say we had arrived if I'm telling the story, because it's implying that you're already talking about the past. And then it's not so much that the had arrived happened before the other thing. It's just it happened in the past. So this is the past, is a big circle, and we had arrived in the past.
Okay.
Instead of it being very chronological. So it's a slight difference, but generally it's always you have one point and then you have another point.
Okay.
Okay.
But can I say, for example, I had visited, for example, London 3 days ago?
No. Then you just want to then it's the simple past. It's a simple action. I visited London. It happened.
Okay.
It can happen with long duration, but
So
it's completed. So
you should add something more description. 3 days ago, when something happened.
yes, when I was traveling, I had visited, or how about this? I had visited London 3 times already. Right. I went to London on holiday last week. I had visited London 3 times in the past before then. So I visited London. I went to London on holiday, simple past, and I had visited happening before then, and it finished as well.
So if I want to say I visited London 3 days ago, without had. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. When you just think of it, am I talking about a background time or another point in time in the past? If not, if it's the only time in the past, really, then you'll just use the simple past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clear.
Okay. All right, guys. Does anyone have any other questions about that, or are we quite? You can obviously look back at the document and.
On the next week, you can if you want to plan other past tenses. That's other tenses. I mean.
Other tenses. These are the main past tenses. These cover most of the cases. You can say I have done something, and there are other sort of slight ways of using the past. But if you if you understand all 4 of these, you can basically talk about anything in the past. There's the present perfect, obviously, which is I have eaten. But that's not really the past. It's sort of like a mixture. But we can do that. We can do the present perfect and some of the other perfect tenses and things like that.
Yeah.
So we'll keep going. But for everything that happened before today, 100%, these are the 4 tenses that you should use to describe that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, guys. Cool. Well, thank you for coming. It looks like we were just on time, or maybe 3 minutes earlier. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send me a message on Facebook or feedback. Otherwise, I hope you all really have a good week, and I guess we'll see each other next weekend, I hope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.